Undertale is a game I visited only once before, but no longer than an hour. So I took the time to actually sit down and play through the whole thing, and I wanted to give you guys a review, an actual review of the game, my thoughts, what I liked and what I didn't like about it. And in this review, I'm trying to avoid spoilers so that you guys can still watch, but I recommend playing the game before if you hadn't. It was a blind playthrough for me, so for sure there's others out there who also haven't played it, but if you have, please feel free to talk with me in the comments and let me know your thoughts, what you liked, what you didn't like, and just let's have a conversation. Because this is going to be an actual review, I'm not going to have a lot of silly cuts, and I'm not going to be making a lot of jokes. This is an honest review from me, so I'm sorry if you guys were looking forward to that. There will be another one next week, and I will be having some more jokes. It's going to be a more light-hearted video. There are 3 characters I'm not going to talk about in this review, and that includes Asriel, Asgore, and Flowey, just because what they brought to the story I didn't get to, or for in case of Flowey, he didn't add enough to the story for me to feel justifiably talking about him, about what I want to go over in this review. The game has a very simple but diverse battle system where it's your souls that are actually fighting. The reason, even though the battles are simple but being diverse, is that the way you fight actually affects the outcome of the game. Because it's a simple battle system, it's trying to actually teach you that's not about the battle, it's about the outcome, what happens at the very end, and why that's so important. The first person you meet that teaches you about how to fight shows you how to show mercy before anything else and doesn't actually teach you how to fight back. She asks you if you are willing to save the kingdom and not kill anyone and be a benevolent person. The way you do this battle without ever hurting anyone is that you can talk to every enemy or at least interact with them one way or another, and that is how you form a bond with them in this game. If you can form a bond with them, you don't have to fight, and that's something very important this game tries to teach you. For a pacifist run in any RPG is borderline impossible unless you actually have a narrative or some reason to be able to not fight. This game has you actually befriend those you run into, and that's a huge change and something beautiful that not a lot of games introduce. The only way that is possible is through really well written characters, and that's what I want to talk about next. The characters. With a wide variety of enemies in every location, and each one having their own dialogue, not one battle got stale even though I was talking to all of them, and doubled the amount of reading I actually had to do in the game. I decided when I came after the game itself, I was going to experience all that I could in one go, and I did a full playthrough, 7-hour stream, and I learned a lot about the people who live in this world, and that's the key thing, they live in this world. One of my biggest faults with this game is the graphics for the main characters are pretty ugly. It's not the most pretty of games in general, but all the other sprites for every monster you fight, especially the Snowden sprites, those were some of my favorites because they are genuinely unique and pretty. But even with the fallback of the designs, it's the life that's actually breathed into the characters. They all have different personalities, and the world they live in is apart from you. You fell into their world, and you're learning about the world. It's not that they're learning about you, or it's being created as you go. This is a realized world, and that's why it's so special when you start meeting these characters. They each have a life. The first true character you meet, one of the repeating characters, is Sans. And Sans has a huge following, and you'll soon understand why. He does little things. He acts all lazy and punny, but he asks you to do little things, and that's what shines through with his character the most. He is hiding something, and that thing he's hiding is genuine kindness. The biggest show, and something that he still hides with comedy, is that he hides you from his brother, but after you are actually safe, and before you leave, he asks if you can do him a favor and just let his brother see you. He says he's not dangerous, and as you watch, it's because he does little things and just changes what actually happens with the traps to protect you while still helping his brother. One of the biggest highlights of characters for me is when we're going through the sewer, we meet this octopus. His size is commendable, and he starts out looking like he's gonna be a boss fight. And it turns out he's just lonely. As he talks to you, you can see in his facial reactions, they did a great job with him, that it looks like he's about to break into tears. But every time he's about to cry, he says something about you and how he's just so happy that you're there to actually be visiting him. It never truly stops the game. He walks alongside you through his home, and as he talks, you realize he's just a little kid. He's a lonely soul who misses his friends and who hopes only to have more visitors. Whether he says it or not, just so he can make a good impression on a new friend, hoping that you'll stay his friend. And you only see him for about 30 to 40 seconds, and that's it. I went back to visit him afterwards, and he was just so excited. He just kept saying, "You came back." Can you believe it? Here's a secret. You came back. And just seeing this little kid just so excited to have a friend is one of the biggest character moments for me in the whole game. It's such a short interaction, but it's so important. The next character I want to talk about is Alphys. She's a character I understand, but one I don't actually like. In middle school, I tried being friends with everyone because the idea of seclusion, I finally understood. And when I saw someone who would reach out and still be alone, it always saddened me. And Alphys is one of those people. She's one of the characters who reaches out, but just doesn't reach out far enough to be seen. And when we saw her, and we took our hand out in friendship, and she took it back, she got so excited, and that's something that all of us can relate to. It's that feeling when you learn how to do something properly, or when you learn something new, and you want to share with everyone. The problem with Alphys is that everyone is you, and you're the one she wants to show you to. She's so excited, and that's okay. If it was a short thing that she did, it'd be totally fine. She gives you her phone number, and then about every 15 steps, she calls you. Her character is one that can hit home really well, and it's one that should have hit home really well. But the way it was done, I started to resent her for it, and that's something I don't want. The final leg of the game, it's a part that's built beautifully. It was really intense, and I was genuinely excited to keep going. But the immersion was ruined for me because of her mass spamming and messaging. About every 5 to 15 steps, it'd be another one that came in, and then Papyrus joined in and started messaging as well, just to react to her reactions, and it was nothing really relevant for a short time, and that even broke it worse, because, okay, you're going up the final section, and you're ready, you're on the ball, whatever you're doing, whatever run you're on, that's what you're focused on. Now you have a friend who keeps tapping your arm every 5 seconds when you're in this really intense situation, and no, I want to focus on what I'm doing, Alphys. But she just wants to be your friend too bad. I liked her character, and I understand how she can make so many connections with different people and her own following. But her character pushed too hard for me, and that's the only real blemish I have with this game, is actually Alphys. One of the biggest things that was always pointed out to me and always shoved in my face was this game's soundtrack. One of the biggest songs always mentioned was Megalovania. I have some beef with the music, and it's out of pettiness. I'm sorry. The music in this game has some great tracks like Mega. The problem is they're restricted mainly to boss fights. And when you die quickly from some of the biggest fights, all you ever get is the first 15-30 seconds of the song. If you keep dying because you can't actually beat it, there's a repetition that both grinds it in your head and smashes it into the ground. And because of that repetition, it just leaves a bitter taste left over in your mouth for that song or that music. There's not good emotions linked to it until after you win, and after you win, the song is gone. There's nothing that carries over with that. It's the relief that the battle is over, and that's why I'm sad with some of the bigger hits like Mega. With the big hits not hitting for me, I didn't have a lot of sense for that music, but it was the music that was atmospheric that hit me properly. That's what made me happy with the soundtrack through the entire game. In my eyes, atmospheric music is music that plays in the background, one that's not in the foreground saying, hey, I'm here, like Mega or all the other boss battles, but the ones that give you atmosphere and emotions, one that you actually feel a connection to in the area, so you know what to feel. Like when you first go into Snowden, or when you go into the Sanctuary Tutorial, and just the feelings that you get when you walk into those areas. Everything's told to you from the music, but it's never what you're focused on. My best example is the song Home, and that's when you walk into the Sanctuary Tutorial. It's a feeling that's just so warm and comforting and welcoming, but you don't actually hear it, you just feel it, and you can listen to it, of course, but that's not what you're focused on. And that's why it feels cold when you actually do leave, because that song stops. It's the music that gives you that emotion before you know what to feel from the dialogue. And it's the music you don't hear that sold me on the soundtrack for Undertale. The game's characters have character and personalities, and the music gives life to everything. They breathe and feel because they do have life in this game. But it's a game that stands out not because it has good qualities. A lot of games have that. It stands out because there's love in this game. You can go to a restaurant with the best rated shepherd's pie and it will be rated by thousands of people 5 stars, but the one your mom makes, that one will always taste better because there is that bit of love in it. It was built with love for someone they do love, and that is something that you can't just mass produce. It's not something you can just make. It's a passion that's there, and a passion felt by everyone around you. Undertale has that passion, and I feel like that's why, overall with this game, it's one that remained so well known, and why people still look to this game and play it to this day over and over, because the love that's there is given to them and there's love back. And it helps that it wanted to tell a story, not create this grand adventure. It's something that was streamlined and focused. It's not something that has a bunch of filler. There's side content, of course, but you can go through the whole game as level 1. That's what I did, and it's something that in all takes about 7 hours. It was something that was made that didn't burn out the creator. And that's why it feels complete the entire playthrough. It doesn't have these divots or downfalls because he didn't have the time and dedication put into it he had time and dedication put into it, but not enough that would just wear him out or make him not want to work on it anymore, because this is a passion project. That is the magic in Undertale, and that's the secret to this game, I feel. There is a lot more to this game besides what I saw. I saw one of the 3 endings that there were, and this is a game I didn't know how to go into, and I went into it completely blind. I knew of the music, but that was about all that I actually paid attention to about stuff about this game. And I think it's worth going back to, or at least trying the next game in the series eventually, and just see how it is, or if he actually held that magic on for the next game. Overall, this game did earn my respect, and I recommend playing it. I'll also give this game, this is the second one now, a 7 out of 10. I recommend trying Undertale at least one time.